I'd been hiking this trail for years, long enough to know every bend, every cluster of pines, and even where the creek split into two narrow streams. But that morning, something was different. Just past the old footbridge, I noticed a faint dirt path veering off into the trees. I'd never seen it before, not once in all my time coming here. It wasn't overgrown or hidden. It looked fresh, like it had been carved out only hours earlier. My first thought was that it must be a new side trail, maybe part of a park expansion. But the Park Service hadn't announced anything like that. Curiosity tugged at me. I stepped onto the path, and right away, the air felt heavier, muffled somehow. The wind that had been rustling through the branches a moment ago went still, and even my footsteps sounded muted, as if the dirt swallowed the sound before it could echo. The further I walked, the more it felt like the forest was subtly rearranging itself, trees leaning inward, shadows stretching too far, light dimming without the clouds moving. It wasn't fear yet, just a slow, creeping unease that curled in my stomach. I kept going, telling myself I'd turn back after a few minutes. That's when I realized I couldn't hear the creek anymore. In fact, I couldn't hear anything at all. No birds, no insects, no wind, only my breathing. The path ahead seemed to stretch farther with every step, the end always just out of sight. Then, after what felt like half an hour, I turned around to go back. My chest tightened. The path behind me was gone, just an unbroken wall of trees where I'd entered minutes ago. Panic bubbled up in my chest, sharp and hot, but I forced myself to breathe slowly. There had to be another way back. Maybe I'd just taken a wrong turn. I pressed forward, hoping the path would curve around and reconnect with the main trail. The silence was suffocating now, pressing against my ears like I was underwater. I clapped my hands just to hear something, but the sound was wrong, muffled, dull, almost as if it didn't fully form before vanishing. The forest felt unfamiliar, even though the trees looked ordinary at first glance. Their trunks seemed too straight, their bark patterns repeating in odd sequences, like someone had copied and pasted the same few designs over and over. Every so often, I'd pass a cluster of leaves that looked exactly like the one I'd seen minutes ago down to the tiniest tear in a single leaf as edge. My stomach twisted. It was as if I was walking through a loop. I tried marking a tree with my pocket knife, just a shallow cut in the bark. I walked on for maybe 10 minutes before spotting it again, the same cut in the same spot, with the same odd knot in the wood right beside it. My pulse quickened. I'd just proven it. I wasn't moving forward. The forest was folding in on itself. Something cracked behind me. I spun around, but nothing moved. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone anymore. The silence wasn't just absence, it was expectation, as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for me to realize something I wasn't ready to know. And then faintly, I heard it, a single footstep that wasn't mine. I froze, my heart hammering in the quiet. The footstep had been soft, deliberate, and far too close. I scanned the trees, my eyes darting between the trunks, searching for movement. Nothing. Just the endless, unnatural stillness. I told myself it could have been an animal, but even that didn't fit. No animal moved like that, measured, almost careful, as though it knew I was listening. I forced myself to keep walking, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the trees were watching me. Not in the whimsical, poetic sense, this felt literal. Every time I turned my head, I thought I saw a trunk shift ever so slightly, leaning in. My skin prickled. That's when I started noticing the patterns again. Certain trees had the exact same gnarled root curling out from their base. Certain branches forked in identical angles. And the bark sometimes even had the same cracks, as if nature had been duplicated without variation. The repetition was maddening. I began counting the paces between these identical trees, 12 steps every time, no matter which direction I turned. On the 13th step, I would pass the next copy, It was like I was walking through a corrupted file, a glitch repeating the same visual assets over and over. Then I saw it. Up ahead in the distance, there was a figure standing perfectly still between two trees. Too far to make out details, but I could tell it was human-shaped. Relief and dread crashed over me at once. Maybe it was another hiker, someone who could help me. But as I stepped forward, the figure didn't move, not an inch. I blinked and it was gone. Just empty space where it had stood. And then 12 steps later, I saw it again. My throat went dry. The figure didn't just reappear, it was in the exact same position, as if it had been copied and pasted like the trees. I could feel its attention, even from that distance, like an invisible weight pressing against my chest. I tried calling out, but the sound barely carried, swallowed by the heavy air. The figure didn't answer. I stepped closer, and with each movement, the forest seemed to bend subtly around me. The light dimmed, shadows lengthened, and the air thickened until every breath felt like I was inhaling warm water. The figure was closer now, close enough that I could see it wore something pale, maybe a shirt or coat, but its face was lost in shadow. I blinked again, and it was gone. I turned in a slow circle, searching, and my stomach dropped. Behind me, in the distance, was the trailhead, the old footbridge, my car parked just beyond it. Relief hit like a wave until I realized something was wrong. The angle was reversed. The trailhead was there, but it was facing the wrong direction, like I was seeing a mirrored version of it. I sprinted toward it, ignoring the strange pull in the air, but the closer I got, the more the forest seemed to stretch. The bridge grew smaller instead of larger, shrinking into the distance. My legs ached, my lungs burned, but I couldn't close the gap. And then, as my knees buckled, I heard it whispering. Not words, but the rhythm of my own breathing, repeated a split second late. The forest wasn't keeping me lost, it was remembering me, copying me, and it was almost finished. I stumbled backward, my heel catching on a root, and went down hard. The air around me felt charged now, like the thick electric stillness before a storm. Except there was no storm, only the forest, stretching forever in every direction, the same handful of trees repeating into infinity. Then I saw them. More figures, dozens, each one standing perfectly still among the trunks, their shapes faint but unmistakable. Some were taller, some shorter, but all were motionless, faceless silhouettes. My skin crawled as I realized they were spaced exactly 12 steps apart, like the trees. And worse, they were all facing me. I spun, trying to find any break in the pattern, any path that wasn't a copy of the last. But each direction was the same figures, trees, shadows. The forest had closed in. A rustle came from my left. One of the figures moved not toward me, but in perfect sync with my own breathing, my own shifting weight. I took a step back, and every figure took a step forward at the same time, their movements unnervingly smooth, like frames in a looping animation. I understood then. They weren't strangers, they were me. Copies of me, caught at different moments, different versions the forest had kept. My laughter broke into a panicked gasp. The one closest to me stepped forward, and I saw its face clearly for the first time. It was my own, but the eyes were empty, the skin pale like something drained of life. There was nowhere left to run. As the nearest version of myself reached out, the silence around me shattered with the sound of my own voice, whispering from all directions at once, "You're home now."